Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another weekly webinar from Sustain Leadership Webinar Series. Really happy to welcome all of you. And for the ones who haven't been able to make it, I'm sure you'll be listening to this to the recording because we always record our webinars to allow everyone to benefit from the insights of our great speakers and guests. Thank you, Rasha, for being with us today. We're happy to welcome Rasha Hadi. Rasha Hadi is today a life coach after 20 years of corporate experience, working with big companies in different industries, including tech industry. So having had her own share of corporate experience or corporate challenges, today she dedicates her work as a life coach, working with individuals, business leaders at different levels of their authority and different roles to navigate through life, personal and professional challenges. So we've been running a series of webinars talking about, the context of what's been happening since we have been dealing with this crisis. And we've run topics from how to innovate in crisis to how to motivate remote teams. And mainly the focus was on maintaining and sustaining business continuity and working more on how to build agile organizations, how to become digital, how to transform. All of these topics are great and are in need, and all business leaders or entrepreneurs or startup or even anybody who is going through a change, no matter what their role is, really needed those insights. But today we're completely shifting to a very important topic because we tend to forget about the self, about what these business leaders, employees, CEOs are handling, are having to deal with as individuals. And all of us definitely haven't planned 2020 to go like this. Whether we are business leaders, we had a different plan for our Vision 2020. It's such a great number. It's a new decade. So governments had Vision 2020. Companies had Vision 2020. Individuals had super goals and had their personal visions of things that they want to achieve in 2020. However, each of us had somehow a setback, whether it's a big setback or a small setback, but none of us can deny that things didn't go the way we wanted them to go, even if we want to just talk about our summer plans, for example. So, and that's why the topic of today is really important because we are all going through disappointment. We could be in denial and keep saying, oh, everything is great, we're positive people. Yes, it's great to be positive, but it's also human to take a pause and really acknowledge that we are going through adversity, that things did not go to plan, as per plan, and that we are going through some disappointment somehow. We're really happy to have Rasha today to really walk us through what is disappointment and how can we navigate through it. She has prepared a great talk for us. So enough from me, and the stage or the webinar is yours, Rasha. So let's start with what is disappointment, just to go, with the definition of the word itself.
Thank you, Hanan. Well, to start with, I would like to give you a definition of what is disappointment. It's a state that human mind chooses to condition the person with. We all get disappointed when things do not work out the way we would like. We become discouraged when we have a plan that fails, a hope that does not materialize, or a goal that we do not reach. We get disappointed by almost everything, from a trip we could not make to the loss of a job. We are disappointed when our expectations do not match what we thought would be. When such things happen, and for a certain period of time, we experience a letdown, one that can lead to depression if not handled correctly.
Yeah. So how does it look like? Like if you really want to get a bit deeper about disappointment,
Sure.
how do you see it?
It makes you look and feel sad, gloomy, low in spirit, and often it's a secondary emotion caused by anger turned inward at the self and feelings of shame and guilt in some cases.
Yeah. So what do you do about it? I mean, what do we really know? I mean, we all experience it, but we don't really we can't somehow point finger and say, okay, this feeling, this emotion that I feel right now is disappointment. So how do you know and what do you do about it?
I'm gonna give you a motivational speech. No,
Okay.
I'm not gonna do that. My job as a life coach is not to make you feel good, but to show you how. So, what do we really do about it?
Yeah.
First, let me tell you what do we really know for sure is that disappointment is a state of mind that we condition ourselves with. And sometimes we get trapped with how we feel. Disappointments often leads us to discouragement, which is even more of a downer. We all have experienced the depressing feelings that comes after we have tried out our very best to do something and either nothing happens or it all falls apart. Regardless of how it may happen or who may be responsible, it's hard to go on when everything we have counted on falls around us.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and then when that happens, how do we go about it? What do we do?
Well, first step, don't ignore your feelings. They are trying to tell you something. Ignoring your feelings is one of the worst things you can do to yourself. It's when you start putting up walls around them or thinking of them as something damaging or wrong. So, dealing with painful and difficult situations cause us human beings to hide our feelings sometimes. But be aware when you hide and suppress, your emotions, you get them trapped. And that will what will take me to slide 5 actually.
Yeah, it's
And
so true. I mean, sometimes that's what happens because we want to have that image that we are this positive person. Especially now, there's so much pressure, especially with social media. Everybody's showcasing this perfect life and this successful life, and we don't want to be labeled as negative people. There's so much, harsh reactions against people that complain, that we took it to a different level and we started wanting to wear a mask, not the mask for COVID, but really a full mask, hiding our emotions. I'm glad that you are mentioning that. Yeah. So, what happens then when we suppress those negative emotions or those emotions that we are feeling? And they don't have to be always positive.
of course, I mean, thank you for highlighting the social part because what happened with the social platform is people are trying to project a different image
Yeah.
than the reality, which put pressure on you as people because you want to make sure that your image looks exactly like what you want people to think. So, to answer your question on what happens when we hide and suppress our emotions, this act can quite affect your perception of reality, the way we perceive life events, and how we feel and think of our life. You need to acknowledge the pattern of thoughts that acts as the discomfort and plays a major role in your emotional stability.
Yeah.
So, as a result, these suppressed feelings often worsen and further create toxic emotions, as well as a range of side effects like lack of sleep, hostility, anger, fear, anxiety, and depressions. And depression leads to disappointments. As you can see in the second slide, Hanan, when you suppress your emotions, it becomes like a blockage,
Yeah.
and it really acts like a burden.
Yeah. So this happens to, I think, to most of us, to every human being, and we keep talking about it. But how can we? What are like the thinking patterns or some common thinking patterns that we could identify so that, or recognize or acknowledge, so we really can point that out and see how we can detach ourselves from them.
Sure. The human mind has the ability to develop a thinking pattern that is toxic. When we surrender to our fears, fears such as losing our loved ones,
Mhm.
fear of losing a job, fear of being alone, or fear of getting old or even sick, then the mind starts to produce emotions that release harmful patterns of thoughts and feelings. The most common wrong thinking patterns are, as you can see it here on the slide,
Yeah.
number one, character is like when you say, I'm the reason for everything. I should have done that. I should have done this. Number two, generalization. Everyone hates me. Everyone is wrong. Number three, focus on the negatives. So I lost my job today. I'm applying for so many jobs. Nobody's calling me back. I will never get a job.
Mhm.
Number four, polar, white or black, it's either or. Number five, imperative, like this should happen. Number six, jump to conclusions. So I see my boss having coffee with my colleague. So I go and start thinking, he hates me. He's going to give the promotion to my colleague. And then I start acting according to that conclusion. And then toxic feeling starts to come to my mind.
Yeah.
Number seven, interpretation. Number eight, intimidation and belittlement. Number nine, irrelevant connections. And number 10, labeling.
Yeah.
So, most of us will battle at some point in our lives with thoughts and feelings that threaten to damage our success and happiness.
Yeah.
Core beliefs that are seeded inside each of us that includes views and assumptions we hold about ourselves, others, the world around us. They are deep seated beliefs which often go unrecognized, and yet they always affect our lives. And that's okay. We are all human beings. And it's okay. We are all having this limited belief system that was built inside us due to the way we were raised, the culture we live in, and the experiences we've been through.
Yeah. So I hear that, yeah, and I think we are all guilty of this. No matter how advanced we are, no matter how progressive we are with our lives, I feel that some situations really put us into embracing some of these emotions at different stages of life. So, which brings me to the next question: how do we, manage these emotions? So I hear from you that self-awareness here is key. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Of course. Well, let me highlight something. When we say manage your emotion, it goes beyond feeling angry at someone and holding yourself from shouting at him.
Mhm.
That is a self regulation. But emotional management starts when you learn how to identify trapped and negative emotions inside you, and then can eliminate the toxic that leads to feeling in a certain way. What makes you angry or sad at this moment is because something was triggered in you. The human mind develops a thinking pattern that is toxic when we surrender to our fears, then starts to produce emotions that release harmful patterns of thoughts and feelings. To name some uh, of the stress hormones, are adrenaline, cortisol, and some others.
Yeah. What do we do when that happens? When we find ourselves into that, when those stress hormones take over our body and really drive us into being these uncontrollable, angry, mad people that somehow act in a way that we regret afterwards.
Okay, so this is the exercise. When you start feeling disappointed, acknowledge the energy that flows to your mind and gives you thoughts.
Mhm.
These thoughts are the outcome of the disappointment that your mind is trying to condition you with. Disappointment can easily arise in your mind and control your thoughts. And disappointment feelings are extremely hard because it comes so suddenly. Stay aware while this happens and recognize disappointments as an expression. Be conscious. It's not true, but a reflection of thoughts. Whatever emotions you're feeling, be aware.
Right. Yeah, that's great. A great insights, Russia. And I think you really gave us in such a short time, a scientific way of how to look at them, very practical, way and how to identify those emotions that are triggered by disappointments, and that disappointments could be really caused by many incidents that happen in life, and especially now in these times of difficulty. So, can you just give us some practical tools or strategies that you can suggest? I know it takes more than half an hour to deal with that, but I'm sure based on your experience with common challenges, you can probably propose some strategy that the audience and myself, because I find this very insightful, we could benefit from and start actioning.
Yeah, being a strategist all my life, I love strategies. So here's the strategy that I'm proposing here. The strategy here is to stay the observer or the witness of these thoughts. And what I mean with that, witness or observer, is to be aware of the energy of disappointment or anger or sadness so
Mhm.
that you don't become completely identified with it. The act here, this act will challenge your thinking patterns. The more awareness comes in, the more the old patterns will change. The real change, Hanan, here is to become aware of whatever that happens inside you. So the disappointment is no longer you. The disappointment is disappointment, and you are the awareness. Now, if you feel certain feelings arise and you couldn't control yourself, it's
Yeah.
okay. This is the beginning of your awareness. The moment will come where you'll catch your mind producing thoughts and stop the flow before it controls you all over. Hanan, it takes 2 to 4 seconds to stay with your awareness and feel the emotions coming. If you catch it, don't suppress it, but be there as the witness. And if it grows, the witness grows with it.
Great, amazing. I think what I hear from you here is again self-awareness. I think is the key takeaway today, and also it's really about acknowledging emotions, no matter how negative they could be labeled, and believe that it's okay. Sometimes it's okay not to be okay, and catch yourself acknowledging that, and then build a strategy or solutions around it. But be aware that it's okay, embrace it, live it, because it's only human to feel, that polarity. Sometimes we have ups and sometimes we have downs. So I guess that was the main, for me at least personally, that was the main takeaway. Unless you have any closing comments, Rasha, before I open the floor for the audience if they have any questions or comments.
I just wanna tell you, Hanan, and tell everyone today is that to observe any type of emotions in your energy is a wonderful shift. It doesn't make you immature to feel something. When you are aware, you don't believe in every thought that arises, and that's freedom. You will recognize it as a thought coming from anger or fear and not the truth. It's a distortion, and we all get distorted in a way or another. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really about knowing how to manage emotions rather than being managed by emotions. And for me, this is really a mantra that just popped up in my mind, and I'm going to continue making it as an affirmation. Manage your emotions. Don't let your emotions manage you. Thank you so much, Rasha. It's your insights really awakened a lot of thoughts. There are so many things that might sound like common sense, but as they say, common sense is not that common. So I hope everyone here really enjoyed. I'm sure they all enjoyed your talk, and we still have some time. If anybody has any comments, we have the chat. Please feel free. If you want to speak, let me know and unmute you. It'll be great. Let's see if we have any comments. So we have some time. Please feel free to add some insight if you have. Ask Rasha a question, and give us your feedback, because we all learn from each other. This is a platform to share knowledge, and I'm sure everyone who's attending here can add value to this discussion. Yeah. Let's give it a couple of minutes. Just tell us on the chat how you found the talk, and if you have any comments. All right, we have a message here. When we decide, Jamila, when we decide to get help from a life coach, when we decide to get help from a life coach or a psychologist, is that a question? Like, should we get help from a life coach or a psychologist? Or you want to know the difference? You can just let me know, Jamila, please.
Yes, my question is that these cases, and it's like when it happened, and it depends on the intensity of the situation. When do we seek a life coach versus psychologist?
Oh, okay, very good question.
A life coach is highly trained on when to identify cases and ask the patient or the client to go and seek help from a psychologist. But in this context of the topic that we're talking about, a life coach here can help you reduce ongoing mental distress by challenging your negative thinking strategies and replacing them with healthy thinking strategies. So I hope my answer is giving you an
I guess
insight.
it's like the first step. You first seek a life coach and see if your situation is really intense. And life coach is trying to identify the need for a a higher stage, which is where you reach psychologists, right? That's what I understood, Rasha. Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. The neuro system today, all the psychologists and all the psychiatrists has been challenged by, should we change the chemistry of the mind for people to change, or should we help people adapt to new behaviors and strategies, and then the chemistry of the mind can change?
Yeah.
So there's something called seed strategy, and seed strategy focus on increasing the hormones of happiness in your mind that will replace the medicine that the psychiatrist will give you. It's really your choice. But again, we are all highly trained to see if you need a medicine or not. But again, life coach would never ask you to take a medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's a very interesting comment from Lena. Lena says, first thing, she's thanking Rasha and myself, and then managing emotions is not easy when you do not have an encouraging environment around you. So how much importance does the environment have, or impact has the environment have on being able to deal and manage emotions or negative emotions, I would say here?
Well, it's very important to have a supporting system around us that makes us feel good in terms of security and in terms of having a shield that we can go to, be it a relationship, be it a financial stability. However, it's very important here to recognize the mechanism that I've highlighted between what I feel and why I'm feeling, and between being the awareness. No matter how challenging is your environment, you can always decide to adapt to, I'm going to recognize the feelings that I'm having today, why I'm feeling that, and then try to see what should I do about it. If we're going to wait for the circumstances to change, then you're losing the opportunity of the awareness that is inside us, of the hidden power that people usually doesn't recognize it. So it's not easy. I know it's challenging, but you can always reach out. We have Zoom, and you can always reach out to any professional help.
Yeah. Actually, I would add to that, if you allow me, that sometimes just detaching from that environment and saying, okay, what if everything was okay? How would I have dealt with this emotion? So really, kind of like putting once, even if you just visualize that, okay, it's not really environment, because sometimes it's very easy to blame it and put everything in that circle of concern, as we call it, and that sometimes inhibits that ability to find your own solutions. So sometimes it just, I would say, even play with your mind and say, okay, put all of these. I know, I acknowledge that environment is not helping me, but if I put it aside, I put the environment aside, what would I have done if the circumstances were perfect? And probably with that, you can already start triggering your mind to think about solutions and how to manage those emotions.
Yeah, I would like also to add,
yes.
I'm not sure about the mental state that I think Lena is asking the question.
No, she just said great, thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. I just want to say that whatever you're feeling is your right to feel the way you're feeling. Don't feel that there's something wrong with me. So this is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we, just to close, because I think all of us are going through stressful lives, and we are becoming, whether with the time, with what's happening, with all the thoughts that keep coming. Can you share with us some just quick tips, just to close with, or steps to take, for example, just to calm down when we really feel highly stressed, when a situation emerges that really puts us in that high stress condition? Some practical tips that you personally could share with us to just get back to that calm?
Before I share that, I just want to highlight a fact here is that we are human being. Human is where the mind is. Human is your ego. Ego is not a bad thing. Ego is where your thoughts and your beliefs comes from. Ego is the entity that all the stress comes from. If you lose your job, if you lose someone that you love, if you get sick, you get troubled, and then you start feeling certain emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But But then there's the being part, which is the essence, where stillness is, where if you're gonna look to life through your mind, through the human part, you will never be able to handle things the way you should. You should detach yourself from the human part and focus on the being part. Being part where peace comes from. So to be able to have that stillness, it's like when you look at a tree, look at any tree today around you guys, and you'll see that there's a stillness in the tree. And for the tree to grow, it had to have certain stillness around her. And that's what I want you all to do. You need to give yourself at least 20 minutes every morning, whether you like to call it a quality time, whether you like to call it a time with yourself. Some people, like they like to meditate by listening to a music. What I like to do personally is I like to check my mind. What thoughts are coming to me in the morning? I mean, look at the 10 different thinking patterns that we all sometimes go into. What am I thinking? What am I feeling when I woke up in the morning? How about I take a breath, and just for 10, 15 minutes, recognize that every emotion I have is a production of a thought. Is my thought right or wrong? And then that's where the surrendering part comes, whether you surrender to universe, whether you surrender to God, whether you surrender to whatever you believe in, just let it go. The power of the presence is the entry point of the awareness. Because I'll just give you a small example. If we are so much worried about paying an electricity bill and the bill is coming in a week time, so I work so hard to have a plan to get enough money, but I work so hard and I don't have money. So what do? I'll go with it. That's it. If I'm going to worrying about me not having money for the bill that's going to come in a week time, all I'm doing to myself is I'm projecting my fears into future, and that will give me anxiety. So that's just an example.
Yeah, thank you. And it's mindfulness, as Jamila shared in the chat. Exactly. It's really to practice that mindfulness. I know it's easier said than done, but I think it comes with practice. I'm someone who really used to have issues. I'm naturally a hyper person, but practicing mindfulness, really catching yourself when that thought is coming and just say, it's not the time. I started talking to myself like that. When a thought comes, I'm like, not the right time. I don't need this thought right now. And trust me, the brain is a muscle and you can train it to catch those thoughts and really defer them. But it's like a muscle. It needs to be built with practice. Thank you so much. I think we could learn that from you because of your sense of calm when we speak. So you are definitely practicing what you preach. Thank you so much, Rasha. This was a pleasure. I'm sure we still have, Yeah, okay. So, Rasha, everybody's asking, some people are asking if they want to contact you, where they can find you, if you can just share on the chat.
Salam Life Coaching, you can find it on Instagram, Facebook, and I will share with Hanan after this call my contacts. My name is Rasha Hadi. You'll find me everywhere on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, so I'm easy to get. I just want to add something, Hanan, is that parenting ourselves is a very important way to feel calm. Imagine a 5 years old coming to you, whether you have children or not, someone who just broke something, and he's only like 3, 4 years old. What would you do to him? Would you punch him? Would you kill him? What would you do? He's crying, so you just hug him. Yeah. Hug yourself. Hug yourself when you feel bad. Hug yourself when you feel that there's something that should have done. Don't do that to yourself. Parenting self is very important starting point to the calm that you need to reach in all aspects of your life.
Very good point. I think I was going to close, but there's another question from Suhail. How important is it to understand the situation or emotions of others, and how can we master this skill, particularly at the workplace? If you can just answer that last question, please.
Sure. Okay, I'll try to give you a short answer. Every human being has certain needs that he has to get. To name some, acceptance, respect, affection, security, recognition, encouragement. So once we are aware of the 10 psychological needs that every human need has to get, then we would start understanding what other people needs. So building an emotional intelligence system that make me appreciate and understand the person in front of me requires me to understand what are the things that this guy or this person is missing for him to act this way. I'll give you a very practical answer, because I'm not going to go psychology here, is that like there are 3 levels. So me and Hanan are talking, and then she said something that was offending to me. I have 3 levels of dealing here. First level would be, she said something wrong to me, so I'm gonna, I'm gonna say something back to her. Or I will go out of myself, go in Hanan's shoes and understand why did Hanan said what she said. Maybe because she was depressed, maybe because she doesn't feel good today. Or the third level is to go outside myself and Hanan and see the whole big picture. What is the big picture saying? That will prevent you from reacting, but you will be responding. Between reaction and responding, there's a huge difference. And that's how the emotional intelligence get built with time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most important intelligence is the EQ today to have. Is really to be emotionally intelligent more than being, having that cognitive intelligence. Thank you so much, Rasha. Thank you everyone for attending. For those who have missed it, or even the ones who have attended, we will be sending you a video of the recording. And please feel free to reach out to me or to Rasha. And we'll see you next week with another webinar with another guest. And have a good evening, everyone. Thanks, Rasha. Thanks, everyone. Bye.